Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 18 of our free training program on Python for AI. Before starting today's topic, let's recap what we learned till now. So, we have learned about Python and how it is a high level interpreted language, and then we've learned about the history of Python and also its versions. So, Python has three versions, and right now the latest stable version is 3.14.3. And then we've learned about the features of Python, which are 12 features which makes Python very popular and widely adapted. And then we've learned about the installation of Python, how we can install it in our local systems from its official website, and then how we can set up it. And then we learned about the Python IDEs, which are also called as workspaces. So these workspaces are used to edit and write and run your Python code. And then we've learned about literals, which is a fixed data. So this data is given to programs. Without data, programs cannot run. And then we have the variables or the identifiers. So these are like the names we give to these literals or data. So variables store the reference point pointing to the objects which store these literal data. And then we've learned about the data types. Totally, there are 14 data types, and these are classified into 6 categories mainly. And we've learned about the operators as well, like relational operators, arithmetic operators, etc. And then we've learned about flow control statements. In that, flow control statements has 3 types. So first type is conditional statements, which is simple if else, and if else, and also match case. And also we learned about the nested conditions, and then we got to learn about the loops, which are for loop and nested for loops, and then while loop, and we got to know about infinite loops and how we can prevent it and its causes, and the 3 main parts of a loop, which is initialization and condition and then updation. So there are 3 main parts of loops. And then we got to learn about the loop control statements or miscellaneous flow control statements, which are 3. So break, continue, and pass. And then we started learning about functions. So function has 2 parts. So function definition and function call. So function definition consists of function heading and function body. And you can only execute this function by calling the function using the function call. Then only the function can be executed. You can define the function only once, and you can execute it as many times as you want using the function call. And then we've also learned about the type of parameters and arguments. So yesterday we've learned and covered the types of arguments or parameters, which are of 5 types. Firstly, the positional arguments or parameters. So these are used when order matters. And then we have default parameters, such that whenever the formal parameters value is missing, we can just give a default value in the function heading, that is the function definition. And the missing value, in place of the missing value, we will just print the default value. And then we have keyword parameters. So when you don't know the order in which your formal parameters are there in your function definition, you can just use the keyword parameters to give your values correctly, like a equal to 10, c equal to 30, and b equal to 20. So when order doesn't matter, you can use keyword parameters. And when you want to give some number of inputs and you don't know initially how many inputs are required during the function definition, so you can use a variable length parameter, so in the form of asterisk arguments. So you can use it and you can take as many inputs as you can, and these values taken into this will be stored in a tuple, and these can be iterated through and used or printed or modified using a for loop, while loop. And then we have keyword variable length parameters. So these are in the form of 2 asterisks KWRX. So this keyword variable length parameters are used when you want to mention the key and value pairs. So when you want to use both key value pairs, you can use the keyword variable length parameters, and this will take the key value pairs like a equal to 10. So this will be the key and this will be the value, and both values will be taken, and they can be printed using for loops as you wish. And then today we're gonna learn about some very powerful and real world concepts, which includes global versus local variables, global keyword, and global's function, and lambda functions or anonymous functions, and also special functions. So, firstly, these concepts are very important for writing clean code and for handling real world data and also for cracking interviews. So, please listen carefully. So, let's start with the global versus local variables. So before knowing about global and local variables, we need to know about something called as scope. So scope or variable scope is defined as the region of the program where a variable can be accessed and modified. So the region where a variable can be accessed or modified. So scope means scope refers to, or variable scope refers to the region of the program where a variable can be accessed and modified. So coming to global variables first. So global variables are defined outside functions. So these are defined outside functions. So inside of the functions, these won't be defined. Outside functions, global variables will be defined. And these are accessible everywhere in the program. So these are accessible anywhere in the program. And this global variables lifetime is the entire program execution. So throughout the program execution, you can use these global variables. And coming to local variables, so these variables are the ones which are defined inside a function. And these are accessible only inside of the function they are defined. And the lifetime of local variables is only during the function execution. So when that function in which your local variables are defined, so during that function execution time only, these local variables will be there. And its lifetime is only to the extent of the execution of the function. But global variables, the lifetime is for throughout the program execution. So think of the global variables like some Wi-Fi. So it is accessible everywhere, and local variables are like personal hotspots, okay? So there is a limited access. That is, here we consider function. So inside of the function only we can define the local variables and access them. Whereas global variables, you can define them outside of a function in your program and you can access it anywhere. So let's take some example. So if you see here in a file name, some file name .py, we have variable 1 and variable 2, and then we have a function. So a function is defined with function name 1, and the list of formal parameters, if there are any, we'll give here. And inside of this, I have a variable called as var. So here var1 and var2, that is variable 1 and variable 2, are global variables because these are defined outside of the function in your program. Outside of the function, they are defined, so they are global variables and they are accessible everywhere in the program. And here var, which is the variable, so this variable is only accessed inside of this function and it is defined in this function only, so it is also accessible in this function itself. So this is a local variable. This is the difference between global and local variables. So some important points to remember is local variables has the higher priority. So let's say we have some variables a in the global. So this is a global variable and I'll define some function fun. So in this function also I have some variable a. So if you see here, the names are clashing, right? So we have same name variable. And when I try to print a, so what it will print is, it will print, when I call this function, it will print only this 20 value, that is the local variable. So it won't print the global variable, which is 10. So local variable has high priority when you are running your function. So so local variable has the higher priority, and then global variable can be accessed inside the function. So let's say we have a equal to 10, which is the global variable. So this is global variable, and I am defining some function fun again. So here let me just print a. So what happens here is this print a inside of this function, as there is no a value inside of function, that is we don't have any local variable here, right? With name a. So what this does is it will access the global variable itself and it will print the value of 10 only. So in this way global variable access inside of function is allowed. So reading this function is fine. So reading means I'm just using this value and printing it, and I'm reading it and printing it, but I'm not changing it. So reading of this value and printing this value is fine using the print a, just when there is no other local variable with the name a inside of this function. This print a will directly print the global variable value. And when you want to modify this global variable, let's take a again. So this is a global variable, right? And I have a function fun. So inside of this fun function, if I want to modify some value, that is a global value, I'll be using a global keyword. So we'll learn in depth about this. So if you want to not just read and modify the value, then you can use a global value. So what happens then is a will become, so you're accessing this global value a and you're changing it. So in this way I can access that. So without this line, if I do this and if I try to access the global variable, so that will not be possible and we'll get an error. And then moving on, coming to the memory aspect of global and local variables. So in Python, variables are stored in different memory areas depending on their scope. So that is why global variables are stored in global namespace. So global namespace exists for the entire duration of the program. So global variables are existing for the entire duration of program and can be accessed from anywhere in the code. And when it comes to local variables, so they are stored in functions local memory. That is inside of the function they'll be stored. And local variables are created when the function is called and destroyed once the function execution is completed. So simply will not just create this, only when this function is called, your local variable will be created, and when the function execution is done, this variable, local variable execution will be completed and destroyed. So let's say we are taking some global variable and inside of function you are trying to edit it, okay? A equal to A plus 1, let's say. So this will give me error. So what you will be thinking is, I'm just accessing this value, you'll think. But inside of this function, you didn't use any global keyword, right? So that is why what happens is, inside of this function mainly, fun, we don't have anything called as A. So that is why Python will think here A value is a local value. But as a local variable, we did not mention any A value. So as we wrote assignment before defining A, we will get an error that is called as unbound local error. So in this case, what you have to do is either create a variable A and give it some value and then perform the assignment. Otherwise, if you think you want to use the global variable itself, that is A equal to 10 here, what you can do is you can use global keyword and you can give A such that this global A will access the global value and then you can change the value. So in this way, you can use the global and the local variables. Now let's look at some code. So here we have a program where pf name, this name is a global variable, and we have three functions, that is learn data science and learn ML and learn DL. So in these functions, we have course names. So CRS1 equal to data science. This is a local variable because this is defined inside of a function called as learn data science, right? So that is why this is a local variable. And then we have a print function. So we are printing to develop the values, that is the course name and then lang variable and then pf name. So here to develop so and so based applications, we use dash language that is invented by so and so person. So in the first curly braces, so course name will be given, and second curly braces, language name will be given, and third curly braces, the person who invented it, so that name will be given. So as a global variable, if you see here, it is defined outside of any other function, right? So it is defined outside function. So this is a global variable. And then we have three functions, and inside of these three functions we have three local variables respectively, and this local variable CRS1 can only be accessible inside of this learn data science function, and CRS2 can only be accessed inside of learn ML function, and CRS3 can only be accessed inside of learn DL function. You cannot access this variable inside of this function or this variable inside of this function. So when it comes to local variables, they can only be accessed by the function in which they are defined. So next we have the main program. So here we'll be running and calling the functions. So let's give a variable lang language equals to Python. So this is also a global variable because this is not defined inside of a function. So if you see, we have two global variables, that is pf name and lang, and then we have three local variables inside of each function. So that is CRS1, CRS2 and CRS3. So if I run this, okay, first we need to define our functions and then we need to run our main program. So now let's run the program, and what happened here is the pf name can be accessed throughout the program, right? That is, it can be accessed by this and this and this as well, this functions. So pf name is equal to ROSM. And then one more global variable we have, that is lang language. So that's value is Python. So if you see here, as these are global variables, these can be used inside of these functions. So if you see, we are not modifying them. We are just using the values of these variables. That is, we are just reading them. So for reading, we can just give the values directly. We don't need to use any keyword like global, which I've told before. So I can just mention the names inside of my print function and I can print them. As I'm not modifying them, I don't need to use any global keyword. So here what happens is, to develop the first curly braces is course name, right? So to develop data science based applications, we use the second curly braces is language. So we use Python language, and then which is invented by the person name, which is Rosum. So that is why here if you see, to develop data science based applications, we use Python language invented by Rosum. So these three are the values we are substituting. So these two are global variable values and this is the local variable value. And then similarly we have one more function and we called it here. So if you see, first we called the data science, learn data science function, and then we have the line using the hyphens, combination of hyphens, and then we call the learn ML function. Now this function will be called and these lines will be executed. So first local variable CRS2 equals to machine learning will be assigned and then it will print this print statement. So this print statement, first curly braces is the course name. So to develop the course name, which is CRS2, that is machine learning. Machine learning is printed based on, we use based applications, we use. The second one is the language. So language variable is used here. So based on based applications, we use Python, which is this global variable, and then which is invented by PF name, that is Rosum. So if you look at the whole thing, so this is the print statement. First we are printing the course and language and then the person name in the curly braces in order, and we will be getting these outputs. And then we are finally calling learn DL, and this function has CRS3, which is the local variable, as deep learning. So that is the assigned value. And then we will print to develop CRS3, that is deep learning. So to develop deep learning based applications, we use the language. So the language name is Python because that is a global variable. We can directly use it. So Python language invented by the person name, which is PF name, that is Rosum. So that is what given here. So this is how you can use the global and local variables. Now let's learn about the global keyword. So now this is an important concept. So please keep in mind and listen to it. So the global keyword. So if you want to modify a global variable, so global variable is the one which is the variable which is defined outside of a function, right? So to modify that global variable inside of a function, we will use the global keyword. So how we can use it is, we need to give the global keyword and space, we need to give the global variable name, global variable name. So otherwise, if you try to modify it without this global keyword, we will be getting an error. So in order to modify a value, which is a global variable inside of a function, we need to use the global variable. So here, if you see, we have two variables or n variables, let's say. So these are outside of the functions, right? So we have two functions and these are outside of functions. So these are global variables. And I want to use or modify them inside of these functions. So what I can do is I can write global keyword and I'll give space. If I want to modify one variable, I can just use that value. Or if I want to modify n number of variables, I can just give a comma and write one more variable and comma and one more variable and so on till n values. And in a function 2 also, I can just use the global keyword to modify the global variables which are variable 1 and variable 2. So I can just mention single value like this, or I can just give comma separated values using the comma. So global space variable 1 comma variable 2 till variable n. Let's continue. So let's take an example for using a global keyword. So let's say we have a global variable a equal to 15 and I want to use this and modify this global variable a inside of function. So let's say I want to increment the value. So my function is inc, and inside of this function, I want to modify this global variable, right? So what I should do? I should be using the global keyword and I need to mention which global variable I want to modify. That is A. So now after mentioning this, I'll be writing A equal to A plus 1. So that will not get any error. And your function understand we are accessing the global variable which is A and we are incrementing it. And then we can print it. Print A. So if I run the inc function, so what this does is it will take the global variable A, that is A equal to 15, and then it will increment the value A equal to A plus 1, that is 15 plus 1 will be 16. And if I want to print A, it will print the value of 16. So in this way, when I want to modify a global variable, I can use the keyword global and I can say to the function that we want to modify this value and you can access this value. And then we can perform our updations. So few important points is, if you don't use the global keyword, Python will assume it as a local variable and we can get some unbound local error, or it will use the local variable directly. And you can read global variable without global keyword. So if you just want to read the value like a equal to 10, which I've said before, and I have a function, let's say, and I want to print a. So what happens here is I don't have any local variable here inside of this function, right? So directly it will take a equal to 10 and it will print a equal to 10. So this is the reading of the value. So you can just read the global variable inside of your function without using any global keyword. Like here, you can just print a and it will give you 10. But if I want to change the value of a to some value, so I want to update a value, what I have to do is I need to for sure give global space a. Then only this will take the value of a equal to 10 and then it will give a equal to a plus 1, that is 11. So if you want to modify the global variable, you must use the global keyword. And you can also declare multiple like global variables at once. So you can just use global ones and then you can declare a comma b comma c, and you can declare multiple global variables like this. And then global affects the entire function. So once you declared that global a here, let's say we have b values as 20 and c as 30. So once you declare that global space a comma b comma c, this function for its entirety, it will take these values only. That is the global values of ABC only. So entire function treats a as global only. And then the fourth point is that global does not create variable automatically. So if you see, we have a function here and here we have global a comma b comma c. And let's say a equal to, here there's some 10. So what happens is, so this creates global x, that is global a value, only when the function runs. So only when the function runs here, that is the fun function. So when this function runs itself, your global x will be created. Let's say we don't have any values here, and I have only global a. So we have only global a, and I've mentioned that a equal to 10. So when this happens is, so this global a will only create a when the function has been called and executed. Otherwise, it will not create it. Automatically, it will not create it. And one more thing is, if you have some global variable, same a equal to 10, and you are trying to print. So let's say you are trying to print a, and again you gave a equal to 20, let's say. So simply if you don't have any a equal to 20 here, so what happens? So this function will consider a as 10 value only and it will print as 10. But if you give a equal to 20 here, so here we have a local variable a equal to 20. Here we have global variable a equal to 10. So when you run this function, this a global variable won't be considered, only it will consider this local variable a equal to 20. But as you're printing a here, so before assignment only you're trying to print. So before this line we don't have any a definition, like we didn't assign any value to a variable, right? We assigned it afterwards. So as the assignment is afterwards of a print function, when you try to call this function, we will get an error here. So unsupported error will be getting because the assignment is after the print function. We don't have any value here. A equal to any value we don't have. So we'll get an error here. But you may guys think that a equal to 10 we have here, right? So we'll print that. But it will not happen that way. As we have some local variable a already here. So there is no value before. So we'll get an error. And one more thing is you should avoid excessive use of global keyword. So why? Because it will make your code hard to debug and it also breaks the modularity. So you should not use it excessively. And instead you can use the function parameters or return values. So when you can use global keyword in the real use cases is, use it only when you want to configure the values. So use it during the configuration of values. And you can also use it for counters or shared state. And you can use it for small scripts. So don't excessively use the keyword global. So that is because it will make code hard to debug and it will also break the modularity. So global keyword allows the function to modify global variables without it. So without it, Python treats the variable as local only. So let's look at some coding part of global keyword. So without global keyword, we can just define some global variable and I'm trying to increment it. So here this function will directly take the a value as 10 because it doesn't consist of any local variable a, right? So a equal to 10 global variable will be considered by this function. So it will access the global variable only and it will print a equal to 10. Now let's try to modify it using the global keyword value. So a equal to 10 global keyword is given here and inside of this function I want to modify this global variable, right? So I'll use the global keyword and then space I'll give a. So that means this function increment will consider the a value which is global variable and it will modify it. So first let's run the function. So what this function does is it will take the global variable a, and before incrementation it will give the value, and after it will do the a equal to a plus 1. So a value will be updated to a plus 1 value, that is 11. So 10 plus 1 equal to 11, and then it will print the value of a after incrementation. So here let's run the function. So before incrementation we'll be printing the a, and then we will call this function. So the main program, first it will take the value of a before increment and it will print the value. So a is a global variable, right? So it will directly print a equal to 10. So value of a before increment program, the function is 10, and then it will call the function, and then it will go here, and global variable a will be modified using the global keyword, and value of a in increment. So initially it is a equal to 10. So that is only printed. Value of a equal to a in increment function is equal to 10. And then we'll perform a equal to a plus 1. So a equal to 10 plus 1. That will be equal to 11. So a value now is updated with 11. Now it will print value of a in increment function is equal to 11. And then we will directly have the value of a after increment function is 11. So instead of doing all these values, you can just remove these actually. So to not get confused, you will just have the increment function. So this will access the value of a and it will increment the value. So when I try to call the full function, so it will give me value of a before increment function is 10, and it will call the increment function and it will modify the value a equal to a plus 1, and then the value of a after increment will be, again we will just use the a value to print the value of a. So that will print value of a after increment equal to 11. So this is how you can use the global keyword and you can access the global variables inside of your functions. So now I want to use the global keyword and use it in the multiple functions. So what I can do is, so we have a global variable a equal to 10 again, and now I'll define the two functions. So two functions are, let's simplify this so it will be easy to understand. So we have a function called as increment here, and we have a global space a. That is, this function we will be taking the global value a and it will increment the function, that is it will do plus 1 value. So updating by adding 1. Now we have a second function, so this will update the global variable. So this is updating the value and it will take the global variable a and it will print the value of a in update value. So when it took a value instead of this function, we will be printing that value and we will be performing a equal to a into 2. So a equal to a into 2 means we'll be multiplying with 2 and we'll update the value of a. And here we have the main function or main program, sorry. So main program first will print the value of a before increment. That is, it will print 10 as the global value or global variable a equal to 10. It will print the 10 value and then we will run or call the increment function. So here using the increment function, we will call this function. So when we call this function, this will access the global value a, that is 10, and it will add one value. So a equal to 10 initially and a equal to a plus 1. So 10 plus 1 will be done. So a value will be modified to 1. Excuse me. Now value after increment function will be printed using a itself. So it will print 11. And then we will call the update val function. So this update val function, what it does is it will just multiply your a value with 2. So now a value equal to 11, right? Then we'll call this function and it will take the global value a, which is 11, and value of a in update value. So when we have taken that value into this function, it is 11 initially, and after performing a equal to a into 2, so that is 10 into, sorry, 11 into 2, so that will be 22. So now a value is updated to 22. Now this is the global value a equal to 22. Now again we are printing the value of a after the update val function using the a value itself. So now when I try to call these functions, so first we need to define our functions and then we need to make the function calls. So first the value of a before increment function is 10 and value of a after increment is 11 because we will be adding a equal to a plus 1, right? So that is why a equal to 11. And then we will have the value of a in update val. So we've called this function update val, and this will call this function and execute these lines of code, and it will take the global variable a, that is a equal to 10, and it will print the value of a in update val. So initially what value you've taken into this function, that is printed, that is 11, and it will perform a equal to a into 2. So a into 2 means 11 into 2. So that will be printed using this line, that is value of a after update val function equals to 22. So this is how you can use global keyword instead of multiple functions. And then let's move on to the next example. So here we are directly having the value of a equal to 10, which is a global variable, and we are assigning a equal to a plus 1 value. So what happens here is, let's clear these lines first and let's run the whole code. So first, so these are for defining your values. So a equal to 10, which is a global variable, right? And we've assigned a equal to a plus 1. So that means your value of a is updated with the value a plus 1. So that means 10 plus 1 will be 11. So your a value initially is 11 because we have updated a with a plus 1, right? So a value, which is a global variable, is 11 now initially. And then we have two functions. So this is to increment the value, that is plus 1, and this is to update the value, that is multiplied with 2. So first, this is the main program, right? So it will print this function, and value of a before increment function main program is a, that is 11. So value of a, it is 11, right? Because of this a equal to a plus 1. So this will print value of a before increment function in the main program is 11. And then we will call the increment function. So this increment function is called here. And then, so this function is called here, and it will take the global value of a, which is a equal to 11. So a equal to 11 will be accessed, which is a global variable, and that value will be updated to a equal to a plus 1. So now a equal to a plus 1, that is 11 plus 1 will be 12. So a value is updated with the 12 value. So now we will print the value of a after increment function. So that is 12, right? So value of a after increment function will be 12. And then moving on, now a value is 12 after increment function, right? Now update val function is called, that is this function here. So now this is called and this will access the global a value a and it will modify it, right? So value of a will be 12 in this function, and it is printing value of a in update value. So before updating, the value is 12. So value of a in update val is 12. And then we are performing the a equal to a into 2. So a equal to a, which is 12 into 2, that will give us the value of 24. So a value is now updated with 24. So this is a global variable and this is updated, and now it will print this fifth line, that is print value of a after update val in the main program is A value. So A value will be printed in the place of curly braces, and value of A after update val function in the main program is 24. So in this way, you can use global keyword in multiple functions, and here we are initializing the input and also incrementing itself in the outside functions only, and then we are trying to do the increment and update values. So now moving on, you can also use the global keyword for multiple variables at once, right? So that is why first I have declared a comma b equal to 10 comma 20, which is a global variable, and which are global variables. So this is a multi-line or multiple assignment. So when I do this, a will be assigned with 10 and b will be assigned with 20. So now the values are a equal to 10 and b equal to 20. And we have update value 1 and update value 2. That is two functions for updating these values. One is for incrementing the values and one is for multiplying with 2. So here, let's define these functions and initialize our values. So first run this and those will be defined, and then we have the main program. So this is to get the updated value of A before update value 1 and after update value 1 and then after update value 2. So this is our main program. Let's run it and understand it. So if you see here, first we are running print functions. So initially A value is equal to 10 and B value equal to 20, right? So updated value of A before update val function 1. So that is this function. Before this, initially what values are there? 10 and 20. So those will be printed. So update value of A before update val 1 is 10 and update value of B before update val 1 function is 20. So initially 10, 20 are the values of A and B. So after these, what we are doing is we are calling the update val 1 function. So what does update val function will do? That is here. So this function call will call this function and it will access the global variables a comma b using global space a comma b. So this function can access both a comma b, which are global variables, that is 10, 20. Excuse me. And a will be updated to a plus 1. So a value will be equal to a, that is 10 plus 1, that will be 11, and b equal to b value 20, 20 plus 1 will be 21. So now a value is updated to 11 and b value is updated to 21. So after update value 1 function, our updated values are a equal to 21 and b equal a equal to 11 and b equal to 21. So now we will print again the updated values after update value 1 function. That is these both print statements. So these both print statements are executed and this will execute me the values these. So updated value of A after update val 1 function is equal to 11. So A will be 11 and updated value of B after update val 1 equal to 21. So after this update val 1 function, A value will be 11 and B value will be 21. And then after this, so after completing with update value 1, we will be calling the update val 2 function, that is this. So if you see here, we are calling the update val 2 function, which will multiply the values with 2. So when I call this function update val 2, so this function call will call the function here. And this will access the global variables, which are A and B using the global keyword. So this will take the values A equal to 11 and B equal to 21. So what these values are modified into? So they are multiplied with 2. So A equal to A into 2. So that is A equal to A, which is 11 into 2. So A will be updated to 22. So now 11 will be updated to 22 and B value equal to B into 2. So B into 2 is 21 into 2. So that will be 42. So B value is updated to 42. So this is how your values are updated using the update value to function. And now we are again printing the A and B values. So using these both print statements, we are printing the A and B values after update val to function. That is 22 and 42. So this is how you can update multiple values or multiple variables at once, and you can access them using the global keyword inside of any function. Okay, now let's move on to next topic. So now let us understand the globals function. So this globals function is a very advanced topic and you need to understand this very carefully. So your globals function now. So this globals function is different from global keyword, okay? Global is a keyword and this will use to modify a global variable inside of a function. And globals is a different one which is a function. So globals function consists of all the global variables inside of your program. So all global variables will be inside of your globals function. And when you call this globals function, this will return all global variables as a dictionary. So how it gives is, it will give, let's say A equal to 10. So this will be your key value and this will be your value. So this is key and value. So as a dictionary, it will return all the global variables which are in your function totally. So what globals will return is, so globals function will return a dictionary of, so this will return a dictionary of, firstly, the global variables and global function. So it will return global variables and global functions and also imported modules. We'll learn about modules in depth in the further classes. So imported modules and also built-in objects. So the objects which are built in, which they are built in the program. So this globals function will return me a dictionary of all these values, that is global variables, global functions and imported modules and built-in objects. So think of globals function like a control room of your program. So it consists of all the global variables mainly in your function. So using this globals function, you can see everything, you can access everything and you can modify everything. So some important points is, let's say you have A equal to 10 here and I'm creating some function func func. And inside of this function also, let's say I've given A equal to 20. Now, if you see, we have a local variable already inside of this function and I have a global variable which is outside of my function. Now, let's say I want to access the global variable which is A inside of this function which already consists of some local variable A equal to 20. So what I can do is I can use something like globals function and I can give the value instead of this square brackets and in apostrophes. So if I give in this way, what happens is it will be able to access the global function A. So what you can also do is you can just use globals dot get a also. So in this way also you can do it. Okay guys, let's continue. So here we have a function and the global variables I have a equal to 10, b equal to 20 and c equal to 30 and d equal to 40. So these global variables are accessible throughout the program, and I have a function in that I'm trying to modify c and d. So that's why as I'm trying to modify c and d and I want to update their values to +1 values, I'll be using global keyword and I need to mention which values, which global variables I want to modify inside of my function f1, that is fun1. So I mentioned c comma d. So after mentioning this, I'm trying to update the values to c plus 1 and d plus 1. And then again, I have two values, a equal to 100 and b equal to 200. So if you see here, inside of function, which values or which variables are defined, that will be local variables, right? So here, a and b, which are 100 and 200 values, are local variables. And then here, a equal to 10 and b equal to 20 are global variables because they are accessed throughout the program. And these are only inside of this function, which is fun1. So now, first, let me define the function and then run our main program. So this is my function and I want to call my function. So here if you see, so what happened is when I call the function, so this function is called, right? This function fun1 is called. So global variables we have are a equal to 10, b equal to 20, c equal to 30 and d equal to 40. So when I call this function, it will execute line by line, right? So first we have global keyword and c comma d values. So we are accessing or trying to modify the c comma d, which are global variables, that is 30 and 40. So now c value here is 30 and d value will be 40 inside of this function. And I am trying to update that values to c plus 1 and d plus 1. So that is why c value will be updated to 30 plus 1, which is 31, and d value will be updated to 40 plus 1, which is 41. Okay. So we have updated the global variables now. And then we have two local variables a and b. So a and b values here are 100 and 200. So now first these print functions will be printed one by one. So local variable of a, directly you can just use a value because a is a local variable here now and a consists of 100 and b consists of 200, both are local variables and you can directly access them in your function. So local variable a equals to curly braces, so this a will be printed in the place of this curly braces and that will give us the local variable a equal to 100 and local variable b equal to same b value only, that it will print 200. So local variable b equal to 200. Now we are trying to print global variables. So global variable c equal to c itself because we already are accessing the global variables using the global keyword inside of my function fun1 and I have also updated them. So now my values of c is 31 and d is 41. So directly I'll print them also. So it will give me global variable c equal to 31 and then global variable d equal to, which is 41. So after updating, the values are 31 and 41. Now I want to access the global variables which are A and B also. But as you can see, I didn't give any global keyword for A and B, right? Because I just want to access them. I don't want to modify the global variables. So now what I can use is global variable A, that is 10. How I can access inside of this function without using any global keyword or any other way. How I can use it is using the globals function I can use it. So what globals function consists of is It consists of all the global variables inside of your program. So my program consists of global variables, 4 global variables, and globals function consists of all these values. So this consists of A equal to 10, and it will consist of B equal to 20, then C 30, which is modified already, 31, and D 41. So this globals function will consist of all the global variables only. So this won't consist of the local variables, okay? So this will, globals function will not consist of local variables. It will only consist of global variables, which are defined outside of your function. So now, when I want to access global variable A, which is 10, I can use global function, and after the global function, I'll be giving the square braces, and inside of that, in a apostrophes, I'll mention A because I want to access A value. So globals function, so generally how you can write it is globals function, and I'll use square braces, and inside of this I'll write the global variable which I want to access, and this will give me the value of 10. So in this place 10 will be printed. So here global variable A equal to 10 will be printed. Excuse me. And here globals function of B. So this will give me the global variable B value. So when I give globals function, and inside of that I'll give B. So this will consist of the value 20 because B it's 20 in a global variable sense. So it will print global variable B equal to 20. So you can also do it in one more way, that is, you can just print all the local and global variables C, A, B. So local variables A, B, that is 120, you can print in the same way as here. So if you see, both are same. And global variables which are C and D, which are modified inside of your function using the global keyword. So those can also be printed in the same way. So when you want to access a globals variable, so global variable using the globals function inside of a function, how you can do it is, you can do it in this way, that is globals of square braces. In that will give a string A or B or your variable name. Or you can do one more thing, that is globals function dot get parenthesis of the name of your variable. So in this way also you can do it. So that is globals function dot get, and inside of parenthesis I'll give A. Or how I can access the global variable A is globals function square brackets A. So either this way I can get the global variable A, or this way I can get the global variable A. So I tried getting both the ways. So it will give me 10 and 20. Now, what is the difference between both of these? So the difference between both of these is, when you use this, so directly, if there are values of A, it will return the value of A. But if you don't have any global variable which is A, which is defined before, it will give us an error. If A is not there as a global variable, this will give us error. That is error not found. But this dot get is safe. So either if A value is there, it will give the A value, or it will give me none. That is, it will give you nothing. So that will be safe. So even if your A, which is a global variable, is not defined before, so this will not give us any error, and it will give me a safe output. But this globals square brackets, the variable name will give me error if A is not present. So this will give A or error. So this will give A or none value. So that is why dot get is a safe method, such that if your A is not present, it will give none value. That is empty value. So these are the both ways you can use the globals function, and you can also do something, that is finding the sum of the total global variables A, B, C, D and local variables and A and B. So here we are trying to find the sum. So how you can do it is globals of A plus globals of B. So this will give me the values of global values or global variables A and B. So this is one method, this is one method. So this will give me A value, that is 10, B value 20, and C value which is updated, that is 31. So if you see here 31, D value is 41, and the local variable A is 100, B is 200. So 100 and 200. So that will give me the values of 10 plus 20, 30. 30 plus 31 is 61, and 61 plus 41 will give me 102. 102 plus 100, 202, and 202 plus 200 will be 402. So 402 value will be assigned to RES variable and will print that value. So that is why we got result 402 here. So in this way you can use the globals function. And then moving on, we can also use it as a dictionary sense. So as you know, inside of globals function, everything will be stored in the form of dictionary, right? So you'll get the key and value pairs also if you want to get them in that way. So here we have global variables ABC. So global variables are ABC. A is 10 and B is Python and C is 23.45. So these are my global variables. Now we have a function fun2. So here what we are doing is we are assigning the globals function to a variable obj. So we are assigning the globals function to obj such that all the global variables dictionary, like instead of using it again and again, we'll just assign some variable name and we will use it whenever we want to use the globals function. So first we'll assign this, and obj will consist of all the global variables in a dictionary, and we will print the type of obj. So this will print me dict because globals function will return a dictionary. So let me just print the output and explain you. So I'm calling the function as well at once. So that will give us dict because the type of obj here, it consists of a dictionary, so it will give us dict. So here what happened is this function call has given me all kinds of values, keys and pairs, key value pairs. So this is too long, so inbuilt values and other global variables all are given here, so forget that. So first we have a function. So our output, what happens is we have the global variables ABC. So remember that values first, and what happens is obj dot items will be taking the both key value pairs. So this consists of the key values, that is k, and v, that is the values. So a equal to 10, b equal to Python, and c equal to one more float value we have. So what you can do it is here k value will take the value of a and v will take the value of 10. So this is the key value pair, right? So when you want to print the values, the key will be printed in the first curly braces position, and then we'll give a arrow mark and we'll print the values. So in that way, all global variables, global functions and inbuilt functions all are printed. Excuse me. Then we will print a hyphen line, and then we'll clearly mention the value of a, which is global variable here is obj. So instead of writing globals function dot get a, what I'm doing is I've assigned this value to obj, right? So directly I'll use obj dot get a. So in this way I can get the value of a, which is 10. So that is how I can print it, value of global variable a equal to 10. And then global variable b is also equal to Python. So dot get, you can use it in this way and you can get the global variable. And moving on, we can also get the global variables using directly like this. So obj, so till now what I've taught you is globals, function, and then square brackets. Inside of that we'll have the name, right? So as we assigned here obj, so we can use directly obj and square braces a or square braces b. So in this way you can get the global variable values of a and b. So that is the same 10 in Python. So there is one more method, that is directly you can use globals function dot get, or you can directly use globals function and then the square braces like this. So these are the four methods in which you can use the globals function. That is, you can assign it to some variable and use it again and again, or directly if you want you can just use globals function directly in this way. And then we have the local and global variables using the globals function. So first we have global variables which are a, b, c, d, are 1, 2, 3, 4. So global variables are a equal to 1, b equal to 2. So as you know, the multi-line assignment, so the one value will be taken by a. So right hand side will be assigned to left hand side. So 1 is to a, and 2 goes to b, 3 goes to c, and 4 goes to d. So a equal to 1, b equal to 2, c equal to 3, and d equal to 4. So these are the global variables, right? And then we have a function fun2. So this function consists of again a, b, c, d local variables. So as these variables are inside of this function, so these are called local variables. Now local variables consists of same a, b, c, d values. So that a, b, c, d values consists of 10. First 10 is assigned to a, 20 is assigned to b, 30 is assigned to c, and 40 is assigned to d. So local variables values are a 10, b 20, c 30, and d 40. So these are my values of global variables and local variables. Now, so when I call this function, directly line by line will be printed, right? So let me just call everything, that is global variables and defining my function. And I'm also running the main program. So now let's understand what's happening here. So here the globals function is assigned to some variable such that rather than using it again and again, we can just use d1, right? So d1 is the globals function now. So this d1 consists of all the global variables inside of it. When you want to access the global variables ABCD, you can just use d1 dot get or d1 square brackets. So here if you see, we are trying to access the global variables using d1. So global variables a equal to the curly braces, inside of curly braces, we'll get the value of d1 dot get a. So as d1 is globals function, so this will consist of all the global variables, right? That global variables are a1, b2, c3, and d4. So this will give me the value of a equal to 1. So that will be printed here. So global variables a equal to 1 is printed. And then global variable b equal to 2 is printed. So using same d1, that is globals function dot get, we got b value, that is b equal to 2. So global variable b equal to 2 is printed. And then we can also print it in this way, right? Globals function square braces, instead of that we'll have the value in a string format. So in place of globals, we are just using d1 and we are printing it in this way. So in this way also you can access the global variables. and I'm printing global variable c equal to 3. So 3 and the global variable d equal to 4. So all these values are global variables. Now, if I want to access the local variables, directly I can use it. Simply I can use A, B, C, D. Because inside of this function, the local variables are only these values consisting of A, B, C, D values, that is 10, 20, 30, 40. So directly local variable A equals to the value of A will be printed here. So A is 10 and then B is 20 here and C is 30 and D is 40. So in this way, the values are printed. And what happened here is we are trying to find the result here again. So result of all the local variables ABCD and all the global variables ABCD, the addition we are trying to find. So in this function, ABCD values are 10, 20, 30, 40, which are local variables, right? So first you will be adding those. So 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40, and this d1 dot get of A will give me the global variable A. So global variable A is 1. So 1. And here global variable B is 2 and C is 3 and D is 4. So now we'll add this. So 10 plus 20, 30, 30 plus 30 is 60, 60 plus 40 is 100, 101, 103, 106 and then 110. So this is the addition and 110 will be saved into result variable. So result variable we are printing here. That is why we are printing result equal to 110. And then moving on we have, so moving on we are trying to return ABCD. So when I try to call the function globals. So if you see here, this is my main program, right? We have 3. So first we are trying to print ABCD. So these ABCD values are global variables, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is why as I have 3 here and ABCD values I'm trying to print. So that is why if you see here, the 1, 2, 3, 4 are printed. That is the global variables which are ABCD. They are consisting of 1, 2, 3, 4 values. And then I've called the function F2, fun2. So fun2 I've called and I've tried to print the global variables and local variables, and then I have a return function. So when I call this fun2 function, I will be returning the ABCD values here. So what are the ABCD values here? They are the local variables and not global variables. Okay. So this function2 will send me the local variables ABCD, which consists of values 10, 20, 30, 40. So when I have a return function, wherever the function call is called, there we'll be returning the ABCD values. So what happens here is, these are the local variables. So remember, local variables 10, 20, 30, 40. So these are local variables. And what happens here is, return values will be returned to wherever the function is called, that is fun2. So k1, k2, k3, comma k4 values will be equal to a, comma b, comma c, comma C, comma D. So A value will be stored into K1 and B value will be stored into K2, C into K3, D into K4. So these are the local variables of this function fun2. That are the values 10, 20, 30, 40. So K1 will be 10, K2 will be 20, K3 will be 30 and K4 will be 40. So that is why when you try to print K1, K2, K3, K4, you will be getting the values of local variables, that is from the function fun2 10, 20, 30, 40. So in this way, you can do the or use globals function in case of local and global variables. So if you want to access the global variables, you can just directly use the globals function and you can access the global variables inside of any function. Now we are going to learn about the next topic, which is lambda or anonymous functions. So this is very compact type of functions which are called as lambda functions. So lambda function is nothing but a function without a name. So we are just creating a function without a name. It is like a one-line function. So function without name is a lambda function. So instead of writing full function using a def keyword and function name and then formal parameters and then function body, we will write directly the lambda functions without using def keyword. So in a single line using the word lambda, lambda, we can just create the function in a single line. So generally the syntax of lambda is lambda. First, we'll mention whatever the parameters are there, like the variable names A, B, C, D. And then we'll give a colon and we'll give the expression which our variables or parameters should follow for a single statement. So we'll give the expression. So it will take the inputs and perform the operation, and then automatically it will give the result. So it will take the input, same like functions, it will take input, process it inside of it, and that is performing an operation, and then it will give the result. For example, a simple example is, let's take add. So in add, we'll do the addition, right? So I'll write lambda lambda. So I'm creating a function which will do the addition of two parameters. So my parameters are a comma b. And then I'll write a colon. Now I want to perform addition, that is a plus b. So when I give the values of a and b, it will perform the addition and then it will give me the result. So in this lambda functions, you do not need to use def keyword and you don't need to write any return function. Directly it will return the result. And also you can only write one expression. You cannot write multiple expressions. And directly it will return the result. You don't need to write the result also, return also. And this is only used for short and temporary operations. It is not used for long ones. So for short and temporary operations, we'll be using it. So think of normal function like writing full steps in the exam. So every step we'll be writing when we use like a function, right? When we define some function, normal function, we'll be writing every step. So it is same like writing all steps in an exam. But when it comes to lambda functions, you are like using a shortcut and quick mathematical calculation. So in a single line, we'll complete the lambda function, but we will still achieve the same desired result, which can be achieved from normal functions. So that is the difference. And instead of writing multiple lines with if and else, we can achieve the same result in one line. Instead of writing some loops or conditions inside of your normal functions, you can just achieve the same result in a single line using the lambda functions. So some points you need to remember is, so it can be used inside of other function also, like map function. So these are some special functions which we'll learn later. Map, filter. So inside of other functions also, you can use the lambda functions, okay? And lambda is mostly used with these functions itself. That is filter, for filtering the values using some condition. And for map function, this will do the transformation of values. And also for the reduce function. So this is used for aggregation. And then lambda can also take multiple arguments, like multiple parameters it can take, not only one. So lambda can take a comma b comma c, and in an expression I'll perform a plus b plus c, let's say. So it will take any n number of values and not only one value. And it uses conditional expression, like if else it can be used. So what can be used is conditional expressions can be used inside of this lambda function. That is, inside of your expression, you can mention your, let's say, we have a parameter x, and this will be even. So we'll print even if x will be, when it is divided with 2, it will give me remainder 0. So this is the condition for finding the even numbers, right? So if this condition is true, it will print even, else it will print odd. So this is like a one line equation or one line expression, and we can perform only conditional operations like if, else, and if only. You cannot write loops and multiple statements and also assignments. So in place of this expression or single statement, you can only write a single statement, that is conditional statements. You cannot use loops, you cannot use assignments, and you can also not use multiple statements. Only single statement is allowed. And when you need to avoid lambda is when your logic is very complex and it needs multiple statements, you need to avoid lambda functions. So when your logic is complex, you need to avoid them. And when multiple steps or multiple statements are needed, you need to avoid them. So you can use a normal function in case of these complex conditions. You can just create a normal function. You can use these lambda functions when your logic is simple and you only need single statement. And in real life, you can use these for sorting your data, filtering lists, and also for quick calculations and also data processing. Now let's let's get to know some differences between anonymous and normal functions. Excuse me. So normal functions and lambda functions or anonymous functions. So what's the differences? This normal functions will use the def keyword, and this uses lambda keyword, and this will use multiple lines, and this only uses single line, and this will have a name. So the function has a name, right? This here, there won't be any name for the lambda function. Will directly perform the operation, and there will be explicit return. So we need to mention the return statement. We need to explicitly write the return statement. Here it will automatically return. We don't need to write the return statement. So that are the differences between normal functions and lambda functions. Now let's know about lambda functions more in detail in a coding. So here we have a normal function to do a sum of operations, sum of parameters. So what does this do? We have a sum of, and when we try to call the function sum of 10 comma 20, so A will be taking the 10 value, B will be taking the 20 value, and this will perform 10 plus 20, and it will be stored in C variable, and that C variable will be returned using the return statement, and that will return me the value of 10 plus 20, that is 30. So let's just print everything and understand. So here type of function, sorry, data type of sum operation, that is SUMOP, is a function. So this is a normal function, right? So that is why class is defined as function. And sum by using the normal function will be returning the 10 plus 20 value, that is 30. And using a lambda function here, so we have add operation, lambda, the parameters are a comma b, colon, and then a plus b is the operation. So this will return me the type of add op. This is also a class function, which is a lambda function, but this is not a normal function. So this is a lambda function which is different from normal functions. And so this will give me the output of the lambda function, and the sum by anonymous function or lambda function is 30 as well. And then we have one more example to find the rectangular area. So area of a rectangle. So I've taken the parameters L and B, that is length and breadth of the rectangle, and I'm trying to do the area which is length into breadth. So this is my function, and first I'll define my function and I'll call the function. So first we are taking the inputs from the user, that is L and B, that is length and breadth values. So let's say length is 5 and breadth is 6. So that will take the values, L and B will take the values of 5 and 6 in the form of float, because I'm typecasting it into float, that is 5.0 and 6.0 values will be taken by L and B respectively. And here the function rect area, so area of a rectangle is called, and L and B values will be here, that is 5.6 in the L and 5.0 in the L and 6.0 in the B. And when this is called, so this will take the values and it will perform 5.0 and 6.0 using this single statement, that is X operation. And that value is directly automatically returned, and that value will be stored in AR, which is the area. And area of rectangle is printed as 30.0, or directly you can use in the print itself without assigning your function call result to some variable. You can directly call this function inside your print statement as well. So inside of format, I've called the rect area function L and B, and in this way I can print my area of a rectangle. And then moving on, this is also to find the area of a rectangle. So if you see here, our anonymous or lambda function is same as before, lambda L comma B L into is to L into B. So the main program here, if you see, in the print statement itself, I am taking format of rect of area. So first value is L, right? So in place of L, directly I am giving float of input of enter length, and in place of L, I am giving the length input. So taking the input directly in the print itself. So to save our steps, we are doing that, and in place of B here, we are directly giving float of input of enter breadth here. So till here. So directly in the print statement, we are doing this such that when you are taking the L value, it will give enter length. So I'll give 4, and enter breadth, it will take 5. So 5 comma 4 values will be taken and converted into float, and the float values are given to this lambda function, and that will give me the value of 4.0 into 5.0, that is 20.0. And then I have two functions to find the bigger value and small value. So I have lambda, the parameters are x comma y. So here I have the condition print x if x is greater than y. So this is to find the bigger number, right? So this lambda function is finding the bigger number. So if x greater than y, it will print x, that is here, else y. So print x if x greater than y, else, that is if x less than y. In the else, we'll be printing y. So that will be the bigger number in case of vice versa. So we have one more function to find the smaller number. So lambda, we have our parameters k comma v, and print k if k is less than v. So if k is less than v, that means k is the smaller number, right? So that is why we're printing the k. Else print v. So else means what will be the condition? K is greater than v. That means v is the smaller number, so we'll print the v value. So this way you can use the lambda functions, and you can take the main program. So you can take inputs from the user also and convert it into int values, and then give that values to both of your functions and find the maximum value and minimum value. Otherwise, you can just give it directly in this place of values only, the input values also. So let's give 3 and 4. So first we need to define this and then run it. So first value, let's give 3 and then 4. So now in the max function, goes are 3 and 4, and it will check. So lambda x comma 5, y, that is 3 and 4. So print, so x value is 3 and y value is 4. So it will print x, that is 3, if 3 greater than 4. Is 3 greater than 4? No, right? So that is why, else it will print y, that is 4 value. So it prints the max function 4. And then moving on, we have the second function to find the smaller value. So x is value 3 and y is equal to value 4, right? So it will go into this, the parameters k is 3 and v is 4. So print k if k less than v. That is k, that is 3. Is 3 less than 4? Yes, 3 less than 4. So it will print k, that is the 3 value. So it will print 3 value here. So this is how you can find the smaller and bigger numbers using the lambda functions. And here you can do it for 3 numbers also. So if there are 3 numbers, simply what you will do is, in place of conditions, you will give if x, so when you have 3 numbers, print x in case of x greater than y and x greater than z. So this is the if condition here. So print x in case of x greater than y and x greater than z. So x is the largest number. So print x if x greater than y and x greater than z. Else you can print y if x greater than z and x greater than y. So this is how you will print y. So x greater than y, so y greater than z and y greater than x means y will be the biggest number. So you'll print y. Else you will print z. So that is the third condition, you will print z. If x and y are both not bigger values, z will be the bigger value and print that. And finding the small also the same thing. So print k if k less than v and k less than r. So as k is less than both v and r, we'll print k. Else you need to print v if v is less than r and v is less than k. So v will be less than r and k, that is a smaller value. So we'll print the smaller value as v. Else print r. So simply if k and v are not smaller values, r is the smaller one, and we'll print that. So we can take the inputs from user and print the both max value and minimum value in case of 3 values. So first value 3, 4, 5. So the max value of this order is 5 and minimum value is 3. So in case of the values will being equal also, we need to consider, right? So if x, y, z are equal, we will not find the biggest and smallest value in case of 3 values like this in the before sum. So what we need to do is, let's run it, and first value is 3, 3, 3, let's say. So what happens here is, so we need to print value are equal if x equal to y and y equal to z. So if you see all 3 values are equal, x equal to y and x equal to y equal to z. So this condition will be true only if all 3 values are equal. Then if all three values are equal, we'll give values are equal. Or else what you will do is, else you will print x if x is greater than y and x is greater than z, and you will print y if y is greater than z and y is greater than x, else you will print z. So here you will print z in case x and y are not the bigger numbers. So as I have given 333 values, so the values are equal are printed. And for the smaller case also, you can do that, the same thing. I didn't do that, so I just got 3. So directly when all values are 3, you can just do values are equal like same here. As you used here, you can use it in this also. And then we have one more. So directly, instead of doing all the conditions, we are just finding the max of the list. So directly we are taking the values in a list and we are trying to find the max value in that list. So what you can do is you can give the parameter that is L1, that is list here, and you are finding the max of L1, that is max value of the list. So directly you'll get the max and min values using the max min function also in this way. So this here, so list consists of all negative, positive and 0 values. So when I define these lambda functions and when I call this, so I'll give list, comma, first I'll print the list and then I'll print the find big of list. So here I've done the function call. So this will call the function here, and the value here, max of L1, that is the list, LST will find the max value in this list. That is the 100 value is the max value. So here as you can see, it prints the list first. So it prints the list first and then it will print the 100 value. So equal to 100 is printed. And then to find the smaller value, we use the minimum function, and this will take the list and find the min function value, that is k, and it will return the value. So here if you see, minus 30 is the minimum value. So minus 30 and the list is printed. And then moving on, we have one more function. So here we are trying to enter the values into the list. So rather than giving a hard-coded list, we are trying to enter values now. By space, we are so if you see here, what happened is, first we will define our functions and then we will run our main program. In this first, enter list of values separated by space, because we are trying to separate our values using the dot split function. So what this dot split function does is, it will split the values based on the spaces in between them, such that the first value will be 24 and based on the space it will split the second value 4 and so on. So it will take 5 values, 2, 4, 5, 6, 9, and these are splitted based on the gaps between them. So what you need to do is, here I have used a list comprehension. So that's a topic we'll discuss in detail later, and it will take the int of the x value for, so for loop is used for x in input function. So here it will take the input, right? That is, input will be 2 space, 4 space, 5 space, 6 space, 9. And this input is splitted based on the spaces between the numbers. That is dot split function I've used for the input. So this will split the values into 2, 4, 5, 6, 9. So for x in the list of 2, 4, 5, 6, 9, so it will take each value and this list will consist of int of x. So this input of split will consist of 2, 4, 5, 6, 9, and for x value in 2, 4, 5, 6, 9, that is first x will be equal to 2, then 4, then 5, 6, 9. It will find the int of x value, that is int of 2, int of 4, int of 5, int of 6 and int of 9, and that values will be stored in our list LST. So that will be the values inside of your list. So LST will consist of 2, 4, 5, 6, 9. So that list will be given to your find big and find small lambda functions, and we will print max of this list equal to 9. So if you see here, max of the first value will be the list LST, that is from here LST will be printed, and the max value is getting from the find big function. So we'll get the max value, that is 9 here, and here we'll get the minimum value, that is 2. So that's it for today, guys. Today we've learned the global versus local variables. So first we learned global versus local variables, and then we've learned the global keyword. So using this keyword, you can access and modify the global variables inside of a function. And then you learned about the globals function. So this function consists of, so this will return a dictionary of global variables, global functions, inbuilt functions, etc. So you can access the global variables inside of a function using the globals function. And then you also learned about the lambda functions. So instead of using normal functions for smaller calculations, rather than writing number of lines for normal function, you can just write a lambda function and easily get the output. So this is for today. And if you have any doubts, please put it in the chat box and we'll clear them. And tomorrow we'll be learning about special functions and we'll move on to modules, and then we'll learn about modules. So if you want to revisit the previous days videos and revise them, you can go to the Python for AI 2026 playlist and you can get the days from 1 to 17 and revise them, any topic if you want. And you can also share it to your friends if you like the content. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends who wants to learn Python. And that's it for today. Please wait for the feedback form such that by filling it, you'll get your attendance. And after filling it, you can leave the class. So thank you guys. Thank you for listening.